Hello, true duelists. It's YGO Strat's Yu-Gi-Oh! Single Card History, where I'm going to be talking about some of the cards that have impacted Yu-Gi-Oh! Throughout the years, and some of the other ones that didn't. Today's card, another one of Yugi's cards, which means that I get to use the word iconic. That's right, it's the iconic Magical Hats. Magical Hats was first printed in the TCG in Pharaoh's Servant as a super rare in 2002, with notable reprints including a rare print in 2009's Duelist Pack Yugi, a peasant rare printing in Yugi's legendary decks, in 2015, which I'm learning sells sealed for $200, and here my dumbass opened it. Oh, and it got another super rare printing in Pharaoh's Servant's 25th anniversary print in the year 2023. Would you believe that it's never been on the ban list? You should, because it's very far from broken. A normal trap card, its effect reads: during your opponent's battle phase, choose 2 spell or trap cards from your deck and 1 monster in your main monster zone. Special summon them as normal monsters with 0 attack and defense and face down defense position. Set the chosen monster if it is face up, and then shuffle them on the field. The 2 cards chosen from your deck are destroyed at the end of the battle phase and cannot remain on the field except during this battle phase. This card was used in the anime to protect Yugi's monsters by hiding them in 4 hats on the field. To recreate this in the game, the TCG version puts 3 cards face down on your field. But imagine if they sold official little hats to put on your board instead. What a horrible waste of time and money that would be for a card that's almost never going to be played. But it is really funny to imagine, having to bring hats to every YCS. It should come as no shock that this card has seen very little play in the competitive game. The earliest and probably most infamous use of this card was in Ancient Gear decks of all things, because Gear Town is a funny card. Gear Town is the Ancient Gear field spell that lets them summon their own monsters for 1 less tribute while it's face up on the field, and more importantly, if it's destroyed and sent to the grave, it can summon an Ancient Gear monster from your deck. So Ancient Gear players once upon a time would summon 2 copies of Gear Town during the opponent's battle phase with magical hats, and then whether or not the opponent attacked them, they would be destroyed during the end phase, and Gear Towns would summon 2 copies of Ancient Gear Gadgetron Dragon for some big dirty beatdown plays. The one thing Ancient Gear does well. This was a pseudo-staple of the deck, I want to say up until the release of the Ancient Gear Structure deck in 2017. It wasn't game-breaking, but it was a fun gimmick, and if that isn't the mantra of Ancient Gear players, then I don't know what is. Funny enough, the card does have a handful of tops in regard to the competitive game, mostly in 2013 and 2014. And even funnier, this card's reprint in Yugi's World in 2013 paired well with the Harpy cards printing in Joey's World the same year, which is comedy because anime. Still, the Harpy cards released in 2013 gave the deck a powerful new card by the name of Hysteric Sign, a spell card that if sent to the grave can add 3 Harpy cards with different names from the deck to hand during the end phase. So a small number of Harpy decks opted to play Magical Hats and make the same sort of play Ancient Gears did, placing Hysteric Sign as monsters and then getting them destroyed to use the graveyard effect. And since it searched in the end phase, you could tailor your searches a bit to what your opponent would end their board on. Since you were searching in the opponent's end phase, whatever they did in main phase 2, you cater to it. Like maybe you do or don't search Harpy Queen instead of searching Harpy's Hunting Ground, or something like that. So yeah, it made a big plus in hand advantage, which is exactly what the other deck that has recorded tops that I can find playing this did as well. And you probably won't expect which deck it is, because it's Cliffor. Yeah, Cliffor would play this to set copies of Sacrifice onto the field, since when it was destroyed by the hat's effect, it would search any Clee monster. And unlike Hysteric Sign and Harpies, this one's not a once per turn, so you get the 2 searches. And that's it. That's the only play with it. There are 2 tops of Clifforts doing this at ARG events, and while it probably wasn't terrible, I think we can all guess what cards really helped these decks to top that event a lot more than Magical Hats getting 2 searches on the opponent's turn did. And that's it. That is the extent of the card's usage in the competitive game, but it's not all of its history. The tips page on Yugipedia does include a list of decks that have spell and traps that can abuse this effect, namely destroying them. Crystal Beast can use this to place Crystal Release and then set their monsters into their spell and trap zone. Or Ojama can get Oja Magic resolved. Metal Foes could even set Combination to search off its effect, which they could also instead not, because you want to keep it to get your scale effects, but what do I know? This isn't really worth listing all of them, so I'll just put it on screen here. Pause if you'd like, but that's what the wikis graced us with, so praise be to Yugipedia. Some of the neat things about this card that Yugipedia brought to light: you can use Compulsory Evacuation to bounce these set spell or traps back to your hand. in what is the most convoluted way to search a spell or trap card I've ever seen. But hey, now you can comment that on videos where I say things like, you can't reliably search skill drain. And then you can hit me with that, actually, and remind me that you could Magical Hats Compulse it. So, that's something. And since the spell and trap are treated as normal monsters, they can be used as fusion material. Namely for something like First of the Dragons and Guardian Chimera. Since Guardian Chimera just needs monsters on the field with different names. And so, that's something. Really though, what I want to talk about is a video I saw quite some time ago that was quite possibly the single greatest combo video I've ever seen, and has sadly been lost to time. Some time ago, I came across a video where a player used magical hats to summon 2 copies of Upstart Goblin to the field, and through a series of combos would use that Upstart Goblin to attack the opponent for game. As I recall, it used Stardust Spark Dragon to prevent it from being destroyed, flip summoned it on their turn, and then used the grave effect of Sabatiel, the Philosopher's Stone, to end up giving Upstart 4,000 attack, and then attacking for game. I don't think it was legal. I think the current version of the card won't allow for it. I have no clue who made it, or what the video was called, or even remotely how to find it. But on the off chance any of you know the name of it or can link me that video, please do, because that was my favorite thing that was a life-changing video in regards to Yu-Gi-Oh! And so that's all I've got for Magical Hats. Oh, and props to the comment suggesting this for mentioning Wild Tornado, which can pop a card if it's destroyed while set, which also is a play you can do with this. So there you go. Now there's all I had to say about Magical Hats, and also one additional comment. Overall, Magical Hats is a fun gimmick card. It was never going to be crazy strong, and it had to wait for a spell that floated to even be remotely playable for a reason that wasn't, well, I saw Yugi do it. But thanks to the growing effects of spell and traps, it's inadvertently become an enabler of a larger number of combos than I can admit I expected. Its unintentional synergy with things like Ancient Gear, Sacrifice, and Harpies has led to some fun duels, and even technically a top 4 in an ARG, which isn't nothing. It's a gimmick and a half, it's nothing great, but if it lets me beat my opponent to death with an Upstart Goblin, even in just like playground rules, then you can bet your ass I'm going to be talking about it. And so that's our look at Yu-Gi-Oh! Single card history, Magical Hats. Stay tuned for our next video, and feel free to suggest some cards to review or what type of video you'd like to see. Don't forget to like, and as always, subscribe to YGO Strats to impress your smokin' Italian wife, and so that you too can be a true duelist.